Soybeans are one of the most sought after food sources in a whitetail's diet. But how can you keep deer in your bean plots once the leaves dry up and turn brown? We're going to teach you how to boost your beans next on the Rakk Factor Podcast. Welcome to the Rakk Factor Podcast, where we discuss the factors that lead to bigger bucks and a healthier deer herd. The Rakk Factor Podcast is presented by Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. From premium deer mineral to deer feed, premium food plot seed to deer attractant, Rakk Fuel products maximize the health and potential of your deer herd year-round. Visit rackfuel.com and fuel your herd. Our episode today is a little different than what we've been doing so far on the show. It's going to be a bit of a hybrid in that first, we're going to talk about a food plotting technique. And then second, we're going to actually head out into the field where we film the application of that technique and then share what we learned with all of you. My co-host Tom Lester joins me on the Rakk Factor Podcast. And Tom, this is definitely a tool that every hunter should think about adding to their food plot toolbox, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yep.
First off, where did this idea come from? This idea to boost your beans?
I talked to you and I talked to a couple of our other partners, and then Zach and Seth from our pro staff and our agronomist, really trying to figure out a way that we could improve our chances of success during late season. But also we were trying to help some of our clients whose beans looked horrible, because of a lack of rain. And, after a lot of conversations and looking at different options, we came up with, stockpiling, our food plots was our best option. This is a technique that's not very common, but, one we think should be, considered more often. So basically what we're doing is we're broadcasting our Wicked Greenz into standing beans and boosting our beans. So this way, you have the drawing power of the beans, especially during late season, but then also you have that green food source that'll last, from the beginning of bow hunting all the way through the end of late season hunts.
So you talk about kind of targeting that late season for, drawing the deer in, but would boosting your beans or stockpiling your food plots work for earlier for bow hunting season as well? Definitely.
Typically if you're going in there and you're planting soybeans for your food plots, if you're a bow hunter, those leaves start to turn yellow before any of the seasons open up for most states. So, when you're finally getting ready and you're watching that deer all summer and they're in those beans eating, those green leaves, and you're all excited. I'm like, I'm going to be in that stand. I'm going to kill that deer opening night. I know exactly how this is going to work. I mean, I had this happen to me years ago, and a few days before the season, those leaves turned yellow and those deer moved. They went to a different food source. So, if you go in here and you boost your beans and you put that Wicked Greenz, in those beans, you just planted your own new food source right there in the same plot. And you can keep those deer coming in there and improve your chance of success, especially early bow season. But that's going to stay green, like I said, from the beginning of bow season all the way through late season. And definitely, I mean, that's a great tool for a bow hunter.
So our pro staffer, Seth, actually did this technique a little earlier than we're going to attempt to do it. And he's already got some really good results happening in his bean field.
Yeah, Seth sent me pictures over a week ago, and we'll post the pictures up, but for those that are just listening, the beans are still pretty green, but it was, he had the wider rows, and you could just see the strip that went right down in between the beans, and it's just lush and green. Um, and all the different varieties, you could see them all popping up. It didn't seem like there was as much like the winter wheat and winter rye in the blend coming up, but there's a lot of turkeys on that farm, and it seemed like they were really kind of picking, some of that seed. So that's the only kind of downfall is if you're in the soybeans, you've already got, deer and turkey that are coming in there and eating it. But it couldn't really have turned out any better for basically taking, that one food source and doubling it. And now you have two different things growing in the same field. And you're going to see where he's going to have green from basically, spring through the end of the year. And he's going to be able to use that from, bow hunting, gun hunting, muzzleloader hunting, however way he wants to hunt those fields, he can, just because of how well this technique, with stockpiling, however you want to say it, stockpiling your food plots, boosting your beans. It worked out perfect, on this plot.
He's creating transitional food sources right in the same food plot. So when those beans dry up and they stop eating those leaves, they're not leaving that field because there's another food source there,
right,
that they're going to start targeting. And he's going to keep those deer in that immediate vicinity.
Absolutely.
So what does the Wicked Greenz blend that Rakk Fuel puts out, what does it contain that makes it ideal for this particular application where you're planting it in between bean rows?
So with our Wicked Greenz blend, we've got a number of seed varieties that have a shorter maturity date, and it's very cold tolerant. So it grows quick because you're planting it later, because you can't put it in the beans too soon. So this way you get it in, it grows quick, and it's going to stay green through the whole season.
So we actually have the perfect place to try this technique out, and we headed there this week to do the legwork for what should be some fantastic late season hunting. So Tom, talk a little bit about Wicked Whitetails and the food sources that we targeted there.
We've been hunting with our friends, the Jacklins, for years, at Wicked Whitetail Outdoors in Southern Iowa. And, they run a first class operation. It's incredible, the hunting down there. They basically, they're doing everything that they can. They go above and beyond to improve your chances of success for all their clients. Not just us because we're friends, but I mean everyone that goes there has a great chance of harvesting deer. And I guess the main reason why we considered even making that, that was a big commitment. We drove 7 hours. We each took 3 days off of work to go do this because, the conditions were really good, and how they have their farms set up helps us as well. They leave a lot of standing beans every year for their shotgun hunters and also the late season muzzleloader hunts. Since I'm going to be one of those late season muzzleloader hunters, we figured let's go down there and let's put this to the test. We're going to go down and we boosted the beans down there. We put down a lot of seed. We covered a lot of ground and a lot of farms. But I think what's going to happen is not only are we improving our chances of keeping the deer that are on their farms, for not just us when we go for late season, but the rest of their hunters. But with every product that we do, one of the main goals of everything is pull more deer from the neighbors. And if we can give them a better food source and better food plots and just something different, I doubt anyone else in that area around us is going to have beans and greens together. So, when you're sitting on those plots, it just can't help but improve your chances.
So how many plots, how many acres are we talking that those guys have set up for specifically for bow hunters and then into shotgun and muzzleloader?
I don't even have a guess on how many number of food plots. There's a pile of them. I mean, it's a great, number of plots. But what I can say is we did 10 different farms with, a total of 20 acres of standing beans between those 10 farms, so there were some that were just half acre and 1 acre. And then the biggest one we did was a little over 3 acres. So they're leaving plenty of food. And it isn't just those beans that are there. There was Rakk Reaper plots. There was Last Heartbeat plots. They had the Wicked Greenz in separate areas. There was standing corn. They leave a lot of food for sure. They want to definitely keep as many deer on those farms as they can.
All right, we're going to head to Wicked Whitetails now and walk you through the process of how to boost your beans.
We're in southern Iowa. It's the middle of September, and we're making preparations for my late season muzzleloader hunt. We're at a standing bean field. It's about 3.5 acres. What we're going to do today is we're going to boost the beans, and we're going to spread our Rakk Fuel Wicked Greenz right down the rows. This one's probably going to work the best out of all the farms that they have here, because there's 30-inch rows, nice gap in between to get some seed and get the optimal growth on this one. Some of the other ones are drilled in, so it's closer. It's like a 9-inch row. So we're gonna film this, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna hunt this farm yet or not. There's a few of them that I'm gonna be choosing between, but right now it's hard to say which ones are gonna be good, because I don't know what's gonna get shot before we get back down here. Normally, on this we plant Wicked Greenz at 25 pounds per acre, but because we're just gonna broadcast right into beans, we're not working up the dirt at all, and just hoping that we get some rain in the next couple days like they're forecasting, we're gonna broadcast about 30 to 35 pounds per acre. So you wanna start this process, really, the middle of August is about as early as you wanna do it, and until the middle of September, like we are now. Perfect timing would be right around Labor Day weekend. We would have liked to have been here a couple weeks earlier, but there was no rain in the forecast, so we didn't think that it was worth doing. One of the things we noticed when we just finished up this field, and I guess any type of recommendation that we could make, I would pick the rows that are the widest open and just concentrate on them. Try to work the whole field, but really get those rows that are opened up. Towards the back of this, there was some spots that were open, but I noticed that there was a lot of shade and the beans just didn't grow. So I just don't think that they're getting enough sun right there. So I did not spread much seed in that spot. So if you're going through a field and you see that you've got an area that's pretty shaded, you might want to just kind of avoid it a little bit. Maybe just put just a little bit of seed so you're not wasting much, because I just don't think it's going to grow right in that spot. But then there's other areas in this field where there's plenty of sun, and I don't know if it was washed out or it there's some times where you just didn't get enough rain. On those spots I really went through heavy and went back and forth pretty good, because it's just perfect, because there's all that open space for this stuff to grow. So that's what I would recommend. So the killing frost down here at 24 degrees, we should have about 6 more weeks of growing for our Wicked Greenz. So there's still plenty of time, and we've got rain forecasted possibly for this afternoon, and then a better chance in 2 days. So we figured it would work. We can come down here, spread this seed, and give it our best chance. But if you're doing this at home, on your farms, just if you can be right around Labor Day, that is perfect conditions. All right, so we're gonna head out of here. Hopefully as long as there's a really good buck at the end of December when we come back down, we're gonna see if this boosting our beans helped us and draw a big buck in here and hunt out of this blind that we've got sitting here watching this whole bean field.
All right, Tom, we got to all 10 of those soybean plots. How many pounds of seed did we end up using?
Wicked Greenz, calls for 25 pounds per acre, and we'd like to really follow that seed rate. Um, but with this technique, you're not going in, you're not working up the soil, you're just broadcasting. So we like to run it a little bit heavy, and I would recommend like 30 to 35 pounds per acre, and we were right at 35 pounds per acre. We did, on those 20 acres, we put out exactly 700 pounds of seed.
We ran into a few snags along the way with areas where the weeds had kind of taken over, especially on those bean plots where, the rows were planted really closely together, the 9-inch rows. We just felt like we couldn't really compete with the weed canopy that was there. So we really didn't use as much seed through those areas, right?
Right. So, we ran it a little heavier around that. And we kind of avoided, we just didn't go right through the heavy weeded areas. So, that's definitely something I would recommend. If you're seeing a lot of weeds, I would just work around it.
Right. So we left Iowa Thursday morning, and then the best case scenario happened with the rain. We got a good amount of rain, didn't we?
So when we were finishing up, Wednesday night, we had a light rain then. So, it was nice just to get, some precipitation, right away when we finished. And then, 2 days later, Friday night, it rained, and I kept watching the radar. I mean, I woke up a few times that night. I kept looking at the radar, and it was solid green it was at least 7 hours where it rained. I'm not sure exactly what the total was, but there were big bands that went through there. So it was perfect. We got, a good amount of rain. We went down there later than we would have liked. It would have been nice to be, closer to Labor Day, but we were, the middle of September, but before that, there just was no rain in the forecast. So we had to wait. And, the middle of September, that's about as late as you want to go. And it was calling for rain for 2 days. Now, the one day we didn't get as much as we'd like, but we definitely got the rain. But, we still have probably 4 to 6 weeks of good growing, because it's going to be pretty close to 6 weeks before they get a 24-degree, hard killing frost down there.
And sometimes that frost doesn't even happen until, later into November because of that.
Right. Right.
That, they're so much further south than some of the northern
Right.
climates like Wisconsin or Minnesota. So we may luck out and have an even longer growing season.
Some of those fields should just be awesome. Others are going to be just a little bit tough because, like we said, with the weeds. But it was tough. There was a tough growing cycle down there. It was tough, to take care of the weeds because of the lack of rain. They just had one of the driest seasons that people can even remember in, all through Iowa. So some of those plots, I couldn't believe how good they looked just because of the lack of rain.
Yeah. All right, Tom. So for the listener that maybe just has permission to hunt or even leases the land and they don't have, the means to, plant soybeans, but they have the farmer that's planting them and he actually is going in and harvesting those beans at the end of the season. Are they able to do this technique? I mean, what considerations should they make?
Boy, if you're on, ground that's not yours, or even if it's yours and you're leasing it out, to a farmer, or you're leasing ground from a farmer, if you didn't put those beans in, as great as this can work, you need to talk to your farmer. Sometimes they'll let you buy beans back, or buy corn back, and you pay them so much per acre. And if you can do that, and you can go in and then, boost the beans and, broadcast the Wicked Greenz in there. But if you're not, and he's going to combine those, I'm not going to say exactly how he would be feeling, because I would get, I'd get a buck grunt right now, but I'm telling you that farmer would be mad. He'd be mad as mad. He'd be mad. So definitely don't do this if you don't have permission from a farmer, if they're not your beans. That would be bad. Yeah.
All right.
That would be bad.
Good recommendation.
I know my farmer would be mad at me for sure.
Well, I think maybe the good thing is if you do get permission and, your Wicked Greenz are getting run over by a combine, every so many rows. Right. What's nice is that grain will pop back up. It's kind of like grass, right. It can take the stress of being rolled over, and it's not right. going to kill it. It'll bounce back, and you'll still have that food source available. Any other right. recommendations for implementing this strategy into your food plot system?
So, I mean, there's just a couple things really. This definitely works better with, the normal planter, with 30-inch rows than it does with when it's drilled in and you have the 7 to 9 inch rows. It just, you have a bigger strip, obviously to work with. 3 of the farms that we did had 30-inch rows, and it definitely, it was just easier to do. But, there were 7 of the farms that had the 9-inch rows, because they drilled their beans in. So you can do either or. It's going to work either way. It's just one's going to be easier, and also, like we talked about earlier, if you've got a really weedy area, just kind of avoid it. Just work around it, and just broadcast the seed, in the other areas, and just kind of leave the weedy spots. I hate to see any of our customers wasting their seed, and spending more money than they need to on that.
And then probably finally, like you said, try to time it where you've got some precipitation on the horizon. Like you said, we waited to do this a little later than we really wanted to, but I think your plan is probably going to work out really well. I mean, only time will tell, but right. we're going to see probably within the next week or two, that growth happening, within that bean field. And it's just time will tell, when you right. head down there in December, if it's going to pay off, right. we think it will. And we're excited to come back on the podcast and share, what we see, how, the plan that you set forth worked out, and whether or not you're going to be able to kill a big buck there in late December.
Yeah, that is the plan. That is, that would be good. I've always had a lot of luck down there.
That late season time frame down there, for whatever reason, it's pretty magical.
Right. The only year I didn't shoot one down there was, we had 70 degrees at the end of December, thunderstorms, lightning. I mean, it was crazy, and just the weather didn't cooperate, and there's just nothing you can do about that. That's hunting. There's just nothing you can do. If the weather's crappy, you're same thing with doing those food plots. If that rain didn't come, who knows what it turns into. But luckily we got the rain we needed.
So that combination of Wicked Greenz and standing beans, we don't think there's any better late season food source you can be hunting over. So make sure to try this out. Add this to your food plotting strategy and boost your beans. And we'll let you know how it works out for Tom later on this season. Thanks for joining us on the Rack Factor podcast, presented by Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. Listeners of the podcast can enjoy 20% off Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Mineral, Feed, or Food Plot Seed by entering the code FACTOR, that's FACTOR, at checkout. Visit rackfuel.com now for 20% off premium deer nutrition products and fuel your herd.